Kia ora. In today's news, the Education Minister has been congratulated for sacking the board of Moerewa School and appointing a commissioner instead. The PPTA's Robin Duff says it's wrong for primary schools to believe they can provide adequate education for students older than Year 9.
Largely a clash between sort of generalist teaching, which of course is more primary focus, versus specialist teachers, which are the secondary focus.
The Ministry of Education has appointed Mike Eru to replace the Northland Schools Board of Trustees. The board was sacked for welcoming back senior students despite being told to close its underperforming senior unit. To politics, where the MMP debate rages on. One of Parliament's smaller parties is taking aim at a mechanism in MMP that's seen to its rivals get elected. New Zealand First's leader Winston Peters is opposed to what he calls coattailing, which he says is what ACT and United Future have done in the last 2 elections. And New Zealand First has stepped up calls for the government to offer Super Gold cardholders a 10% winter discount on their electricity bills. But the Prime Minister has declined.
I don't recall him ever giving pensioners a 10% reduction in their power bills, so maybe he owes them an apology.
The government's coming under renewed pressure to stop partial asset sales. A hikoi set off from Cape Reinga this morning and will take about a fortnight to reach Parliament. Spokesman Dean Bajent Mercer hopes it will urge the government to backtrack.
We need to retain our decision-making powers rather than allowing our country to be taken over by corporates from other countries.
Tourism New Zealand will be keeping a close eye on Shanghai Pungshin's new brand name, Pure 100. The company behind the Crayford Farms purchase has registered the name, which is very similar to the country's 100% pure slogan. Tourism New Zealand CEO Kevin Bowler says he isn't worried about the trademark at this stage. There's been a drop in New Zealand's suicide rate. New Ministry of Health figures show that in 2009, 506 people committed suicide. That's a drop of more than 25% over the previous 10 years. However, New Zealand's male youth suicide rate is the highest in the OECD, even though it has fallen. Business analyst Roger Kerr expects 2 political developments in Europe may have discouraged investors in the last few weeks. The Dutch Prime Minister and his cabinet have resigned, and the French President, Nicolas Sarkozy, faces a battle to keep his job as the general election swings away from him. Norway gunman Anders Breivik has apologised for the non-political victims of his Oslo bombing. In his final testimony, the court was told it wasn't his intention to kill civilians. However, he said he doesn't regret his shooting rampage at the youth camp for Labour supporters in Utoya. And finally, New Zealand is gearing up for Anzac Day commemorations with support from across the Tasman. 3 Royal Australian Navy ships have docked around New Zealand ahead of tomorrow's events. The HMAS Newcastle has docked in Auckland, the HMAS Perth is in Wellington, and the HMAS Warramanga is in the Tauranga. That's tonight's news. Paul Marie.